Good afternoon, arts advocates, and welcome to Americans for the Arts and the Arts Action Fund's office hours with our arts advocacy team, with a very special edition focused on celebrating National Arts and Education Week 2025. My name is Jay Deck, and I'm a 50-something gay white cis male with short brown hair and a graying beard. I'm wearing a checkered purple shirt, and I'm calling in from my home office, surrounded by mementos from my life. Americans for the Arts is committed to accessibility, and this includes our speakers offering visual descriptions of themselves, which makes the webinar more accessible for audience members that are blind or have low vision. Additionally, there are Zoom-generated closed captions for audience members. You can access the closed caption by selecting the CC button in your Zoom toolbar. This webinar also includes live American Sign Language interpretation, which you can access by clicking on the globe icon in the Zoom toolbar and select ASL interpretation. We welcome our interpreters Abdil and Timothy, and thank you for their help today. We want you to ask questions. If you have access to the Q&A feature, which is also located in the Zoom toolbar, that way you can ask our speakers questions throughout the webinar. We will do our best to answer all questions, either by responding through the Q&A feature or aloud during the allotted Q&A segments of the webinar. This webinar is also being recorded and will be available for you to watch and share in the next week. You will also be able to find additional resources on our office hours landing page, and that link is going to be shared in the chat box now. In the event that we don't answer all your questions, please reach out to Americans for the Arts Public Policy Manager Olivia Tarpley so we can keep in touch. Today's session will include an update on federal arts education policy and legislation, followed by panel conversations. The first panel will be moderated by Tushar Swain, Americans for the Arts Director of Public Policy, and then the second panel will be led by Anna Hudson, our AFTA's Chief Programs Officer. Each panel will have a time for Q&A. And at the end, I'll be back to share some additional information about various advocacy resources and how you can stay involved in future webinars. But let's take a moment and we'll introduce real quickly all of our AFTA staff speakers, and feel free to reach out to any of us. Again, I'm Jay. Olivia will be coming on here shortly. Tushar Swain will be doing our first panel, and Ayana Hudson will be doing our second panel. In addition to our staff speakers, we have a very special guest. Representative Alma S will be joining us to talk about all of her work promoting arts and arts education on Capitol Hill. So we will take a break when she is able to join us. And in addition to Representative, we will have 5 very talented expert speakers who are going to be talking to you about various parts of the arts education field. So we're very grateful to each of them, and they will all introduce themselves during the panel there. So I believe with that, let's get started. To kick things off, please welcome Olivia Tarpley, Americans for the Arts Public Policy Manager, who will be providing a federal arts update. Thanks all for everyone being here, and Olivia, take it away.
Thank you, Jay. Greetings, guests and advocates. Like Jay said, my name is Olivia Tarpley, and I'm the Public Policy Manager at Americans for the Arts. Thank you again for joining us today and for everything that you do to advance the arts and arts education in your communities. I am a white woman with short and wavy dark brown hair. I'm wearing a white blouse and I'm seated in a hotel room in Denver, Colorado, with a piece of art hanging on the wall behind me. I've just had the privilege of sharing space with arts educators and colleagues from across the country at the annual Arts Education Partnership, also known as AEP, convening here in Denver. And the conversations have been very rich, and I'm feeling so encouraged about all of the ways that we can partner and collaborate together to address the challenges before us. I'm going to give a federal arts education policy update that includes appropriations, arts education legislation, and the federal agencies. So with that, we will bring the slides up. Thank you so much, Morgan, and start talking about the appropriations process. So each year, Congress takes up their appropriations process through 12 bills to fund the government. Arts education advocates focus on the Labor, Health and Human Services, and Education bill, which has several funding streams that can be used for arts education. Each year, the president makes a budget proposal, and each chamber of Congress, the House and the Senate, write funding bills. When Congress reauthorized the Elementary and Secondary Education Act in 2015, also known as the Every Student Succeeds Act, the law specified 17 well-rounded subjects that includes the arts and music. Within the Labor, Health and Human Services, and Education bill, there are various titles that can be used for arts education. Title I, which you see on the first row of the chart, is for students in high poverty schools. Many folks are probably familiar with this funding already, as schools and districts across the country are sometimes referred to as Title I schools. For fiscal year 2026, the president proposed level funding of $18.4 billion, and the Senate included a slight increase from fiscal year FY 2025 funding of $18.5 billion. The House, however, proposed cutting Title I funding to $14.6 billion in their version of the bill, and the House and Senate will have to negotiate the differences in their bills. Title II is for professional development for educators, which includes arts educators. Title II grants provide opportunities to increase educator capacity, again, including arts educators, through professional development that ultimately supports student success. While the Senate provided level funding for this program, unfortunately, the President and House have zeroed out funding for Title II. Title IV includes student support and academic enrichment grants in Part A, and 21st Century Community Learning Centers in Title IV, Part B. The student support and academic enrichment grants have opportunities for arts education initiatives and integrating the arts into various other subjects. The 21st Century Community Learning Centers is a competitive grant program providing funds for additional learning opportunities to support a well-rounded education. While the president zeroed out Title IV Parts A and B, both the House and the Senate have included at least level funding for these programs. The last piece of the federal appropriations pie for arts education is the Assistance for Arts Education program. This model grant program was funded at $36.5 million in FY 2025 and received a cut in the Senate bill, as you can see in the last row of the chart here. The president zeroed out the Assistance for Arts Education grant program, and similarly, the House is not including funding for this program in their bill, stating that the funding for the Department of Education should be focused on core education, such as reading, writing, and math. While it is really disappointing that the Assistance for Arts Education program wasn't included in the House bill, I do want to note that it's only one of the chambers, and there are still several steps that need to happen before fiscal year 2026 funding is final. Congress has until the end of this month, the end of September, to finish their funding bills, and it's possible that they don't quite make their deadline, which has certainly happened before. And in that event, in the event that they don't make their deadline, we would likely see a continuing resolution, also referred to as a CR. The landscape, of course, will continue to evolve, so please feel free to keep in touch with us to see how the annual appropriations play out and how you can help to advocate. Next slide, please. So we know that the arts are a critical part of every student's education, and we're advocating for the Arts Education for All Act, which would expand access to arts education and arts integrated learning for students K through 12 and beyond. This is one of the broadest pieces of arts education legislation ever introduced, and among many things, it would strengthen the use of child care development block grant funding for arts programming, maximize partnerships with community and art-focused organizations through the 21st Century Community Learning Centers programs, and it includes evaluation measures, specifically directing the reinstatement of national arts assessments. This legislation also includes provisions for the arts in juvenile justice and incorporating the arts in reentry efforts. Another piece of legislation that you can join us in advocating for is the HBCU Arts Act. This bill aims to remove financial barriers to arts education and includes conservation for HBCU arts programs. The legislation would add several provisions for allowed use of federally appropriated grant funds to HBCUs, some of which are establishing outreach programs and development offices for arts education, and cultural arts departments, and providing comprehensive wraparound services for arts education, and cultural students. This could include faculty and peer mentorship, work-based learning opportunities, guidance counseling, and career advising. Of course, our special guest, like Jay mentioned, will share more about the bill, so we'll certainly be looking forward to that. And then just wanted to close this slide by saying that both of these bills have only been introduced in the House of Representatives so far. Next slide, please. During the last portion of the federal update, I wanted to share some arts education specific information related to the U.S. Department of Education and the National Endowment for the Arts, abbreviated NEA. The Department of Education has a partnership initiative with the NEA, which is the Arts Education Partnership. Through this commitment by these two federal agencies, the Arts Education Partnership is a national network of more than 200 organizations dedicated to advancing arts education. AEP has been supported by the NEA and U.S. Department of Education since 1995. Another arts education dedicated initiative is the Assistance for Arts Education Grant Program. We've discussed the funding for this program already, but I want to highlight that some of the Assistance for Arts Education grantees have received notice of their grants being canceled in the last couple of weeks. So we ask all of you to join us in advocating to Congress for these grants to be restored and for continued federal funding for this important grant program in FY 2026. The National Endowment for the Arts is the largest public funder of arts education in the country. The NEA describes its arts education program as focused on pre-K to 12th grade students, the educators and civic leaders who support them, and the schools and communities that serve them. The agency's funding is focused on providing dance, music, theater, visual arts, literary arts, and media arts education for all students and closing the opportunity gap for students who have the least access to arts education. About 75% of the NEA's arts education grants go directly to underserved populations in the form of direct learning grants, professional development grants, and collective impact grants. Advocate with us this National Arts and Education Week for at least $207 million for both the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities. Again, thank you all so much for all of the ways that you support students across the country. We're grateful to advocate with each of you for the importance of the arts in education. And with that, I'm excited to turn things over to my colleague Tushar Swain and our panel of expert speakers. Thank you so much.
Olivia, I think I'm going to step back in for a moment because we are waiting for our wonderful special guest, Representative Alma Adams, to join us. So in the meantime, I want to pick up something that you had mentioned, Olivia, how to get involved. So around not only Arts Education Week, but overall throughout the year to advocate for the arts and culture at the federal, state, and local levels. So download our toolkit, and we will be providing links for all that. We have newsletters, get on our newsletter list, see all of our website content. We're always trying to put new stuff up there. If you have ideas of stuff that's missing, let us know that, and we'll be more than happy to put anything like that up on the website too. Social media templates. Social media is so important nowadays. Different people consume different information in such different ways. And so our communications department does a wonderful job of creating lots of different social media posts, templates. We encourage you to post them on your own social media, to share them, and they're really kind of fun stuff too. So we really encourage you to do that. We have partner email templates. So again, if you work for an organization or have a mailing list or anything like that, we have pre-drafted subject lines, key messages, and e-blast text for you to send out to your folks. So again, you're making it so easy for people to take action to write about why they care about our arts education. We also have, key talking points about our legislative priorities. So again, oftentimes people care about the arts, but they don't know where to start. They don't know what to say or anything along those lines. And so we have all that stuff there for you. So you know what topics are there, what the key points should be. And so hopefully it allows you to be even more comfortable in being able to talk about the arts with that. And again, on our website, we will also identify who your elected officials are. So again, if you don't know who that is, it's a one-stop shop to be able to help you to be able to understand, what's important, what the timing, and who you should be talking to. Again, we also, of course, then have our call to action and resources. There's direct links to our fact sheets, our one-pagers, again, all the information you need to know, and our Arts Action Center. So again, this is where you take, if you know your address and your zip code, you type it in and it will bring up who your elected officials are and the sample messages that go along with that. In addition to all of that, Americans for the Arts staff, especially our Government Affairs and Arts Action Fund staff, we're here for you to answer whatever questions you might have. So always feel free to go to our website if you don't have our email addresses and go to the staff page and you can find us. And we're always happy to answer any questions that you might have with that. Continuing on from that, I want to introduce a couple things that are coming up that I really encourage you to join us with. On September 16th from 3 to 4 Eastern, we have our latest community conversation that the American Institute of Arts hosts. This is on, of course, arts and education. So we have a variety of different people coming in to moderate and help facilitate discussions. So this is your time to be able to share your views and what you're doing locally or at the state level that other people can hear about. And so we really encourage people to come and be part of this process here too. So, and again, the community conversations, they go all throughout the year. And so make sure you're always going to Americans for the Arts webpage to see all the different things that are going on here in the in our community here. In addition to the community conversations that we have here, if our next slide, this office hours, I will want to point out, is going to be reported. I've seen a couple people who have asked where's the slides will be, things like that. So the slides are always posted on our office hours website there. So you need to just go there and it will appear in the next week or so with that. So again, we have, we always try to keep everything on one last place. And then lastly, before I turn it back over to Tushar, I just want to talk about upcoming office hours that we're going to be doing. People who are been through this, we used to be doing these every couple weeks, and then we pulled back a little bit. So we're going to go every month now. And so our next one will be October 17th, the 14th of November, the 12th of December, and you can always register again at that same web link there for that. This is a great way to continue to, be able to stay involved because things are always changing. And always make sure you're on our email list because we're always sending out information for that. And I see in the chat, folks are dropping those links in there for all this great information. So again, we're here to try to help you out, to make sure that we're paying attention because there's a lot of stuff to pay attention to, especially at the federal level going on. So we hope that we are able to provide those services to you there. So anyway, with that, I am going to turn it back over to Tushar Swain, my colleague, for you to take the next section. So Tushar, welcome again, and the floor is yours, sir.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tushar Swain. I'm Director of Public Policy here at Americans for the Arts. I am a middle-aged a man with brown skin and a bald head, and today I am wearing blue glasses, white shirt with a blue sports jacket. I'm in my office with some art behind me. I am looking to see if we have our special guest, and I'm thinking that we do not yet. So let me maybe just give you just adding a little bit to what Olivia had talked about with regard to uh, arts education funding, and maybe just a broader view of what's happening on Capitol Hill. Congress has returned, and they are looking for a continuing resolution that will hopefully fund the government beyond September 30th. If they do not, there would be an impending government shutdown. And I think what we're hearing is that there often is a lot of talk about this, but this time potentially seems more serious than in times past. A lot of discussion about rescissions, potentially Democrats wanting to prevent those, and healthcare subsidies being attached to a continuing resolution as part of the Affordable Care Act that are set to expire at the end of the month. And so what that means, obviously, for what Olivia was talking about, is that while pieces of legislation, appropriations bills have passed, we don't anticipate the ones that we are most focused on, which is the labor, HHS, and education appropriations bills. And we can get a little bit more into that a little bit later. But right now, we are so thrilled to have our special guest today, Representative and Dr. Alma Adams was elected to her 6th full term representing the 12th Congressional District of North Carolina last November. Congresswoman Adams graduated from North Carolina A&T State University in 1968 and received her Master of Arts in Art Education in 1972. She earned her PhD in Art Education and Multicultural Education from The Ohio State University in Columbus in 1981. The Congresswoman serves on the Committee on Education and Workforce and on the subcommittees of early childhood, elementary, and secondary education. She's the ranking member on the subcommittee on higher education and workforce development. And one of her outstanding legislative accomplishments was the enactment of the Future Act that permanently provides funding totaling $255 million a year for all minorities serving institutions, including historically Black colleges and universities. The Congresswoman is the founder and co-chair of the Congressional Bipartisan Historically Black Colleges and Universities HBCU caucus. And Dr. Adams taught art at Bennett College for 40 years and is the champion of the HBCU Arts Act legislation designed to bolster arts programs, arts education programs, and the conservation of important African American collections at HBCUs. Representative Adams, we are so thrilled to have you here. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well, and thank you. And listen, thank you for the invitation, and thank you for all that you do, and especially the work that you do to promote and support the arts and education.
Well, thank you. You certainly are a champion in the arts, both in Congress and in practice. You are certainly in a unique position with your background, having introduced the HBCU Arts Act. Can you describe the importance of HBCUs in today's world, as well as the importance of the arts and how the intersection of both is important to our society?
Well, thank you very much for that question. And let me just let me, in full disclosure, say I am HBCU strong. I'm equally as strong in terms of arts and arts education, because these are things that not only am I passionate about, but the arts and the success of our historically Black colleges and universities go hand in hand. The HBCUs are defined by educational excellence, by leadership, professional success, and I know that firsthand. As you've mentioned, I am a HBCU graduate, North Carolina A&T in art education and the Ohio State University. But so HBCUs are really more than just scholastic excellence. They're centers of culture, economic drivers for the communities, and just as importantly, they are a nexus for researching and preserving and producing art. I am a visual artist myself. I'm a printmaker. I taught art for a long time, and I tell my students that we are visual storytellers. And whether we are painting a canvas, whether you are promoting music, art is a universal language. And even though people may not speak the same language, you go into a museum, a gallery, and you get this visual experience. Everybody can kind of come together and celebrate those things. So when we think about what's going on in our country today, how turbulent things are, art is really essential to telling the story of the moment that we're in, from underrepresented to overheard voices. It plays an essential role in this space. So HBCUs are some of the biggest supporters and artists in the world. When you think of the beginning with Augusta Savage and some of the other more current contemporary artists and folks who are working in this field, they are HBCU graduates, and some of our most comprehensive collections and art collections and so forth are really on many of our HBCU campuses. So I'm just proud to have been a part of this whole experience. I've been to many of our campuses that have collections. Some of the oldest African American museums are housed at our schools. Hampton University, for example, many of the other HBCUs. I'll say to you that Bennett College, where I worked for those 40 years, we have an extraordinary collection, and some of the oldest pieces that we have go back to the early 1800s, 1931, when Aaron Douglas produced a site-specific work for our schools. So we are, HBCU Arts Act, which I sponsored, is about historic investments in HBCU arts and ensuring that the arts can remain accessible to underserved students for generations to come. We're concerned about protecting these centers, protecting these collections. We're concerned about continuing research and preservation. So it's, the arts are for everyone. A strong community has strong arts.
Thank you. Dr. Adams, just continuing the conversation on HBCU Arts Act, can you talk about the importance of diversity in our arts educators, both in terms of ethnicity and personal background, talking about, cultural responsiveness, and how these concepts are important to all children?
Well, listen, I used to say, and I still do, that children love the arts like they love ice cream. I think it's so important for our young people to be engaged in the arts, because they do, as I said, they make us human, and they are extensions of who we are and what we hope to be. A community really can't survive without a healthy arts environment. Children live their lives through, whether a canvas, through playing music, through dance. So it helps to expand the minds and the heels of our souls, and our children really deserve to have this experience because nothing can go wrong really when you're talking about trying to communicate through artistic means, regardless of what medium you're using, what vehicle it is, whether it's music, whether it's theater, whether it's literature. I have known over the years that students will sometimes stay in school because they have an opportunity to participate in arts education. And arts education goes beyond the classroom, also out into the community. So whether you're talking about learning mathematics, whether you're doing science experiments and all those things, there is an interrelatedness between those studies and those things that we learn and the arts experiences that we have. So, when you think about Sir Isaac Newton, best known for formulating the laws of motion, developed the modern color theory. And I remember when I taught art at Bank College, one of my favorite courses was design, which is one of the early foundation courses that we have. But when we think about the readings and the studies that are out there, they suggest that art education and youth activities lead to so many improvements that we notice with our children in terms of their writing, their emotional and cognitive empathy, their school engagement, higher education aspirations, and all of those things help these children to become well-rounded. So art is and has always been more than just art. It's about telling stories. And I always say we are storytellers. All the stories that we tell are not stories that people want to hear about, but they're stories that preserve history, stories that we need to share, emotional expression, community building, all those things. I used to tell my students all the time, and we would go out to look at various art in our community, whether it was in public spaces or whether in museums and galleries. You're not going to like everything that you see, but you need to be able to say why you don't like it. And that means that you have to study it. That means that you have to really get involved with what you see and making certain interpretations. But I think we owe it to our children to ensure that art education is always taught in our schools, because without it, they will not have a well-rounded education.
Congresswoman, just extending that a bit further, it sounds like that you would say that arts and arts education is vital also to workforce development.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I think about when I think about that, I think that's so important because we have situations in communities where it's the artists, and artists are they're the business of art really helps to sustain communities as well. And when we think about some of the tragic things that have happened, whether it's through hurricanes or floods and those kinds of things, we have lost a lot in terms of artists who've lost their studios, who've lost an opportunity to share those works. When we think about what's happened here right in North Carolina, up in the mountain areas where the hurricanes came, a lot of the artists who are small business people, they help to really sustain our communities. I am the co-founder, for example, of the African American Atelier Gallery, which we opened in 1991. My former teacher and professor and mentor, the late Abraham Miller, and I started that because there was a gap in the community. We did not have a standalone art gallery that would showcase the works, for example, of African American artists every day and other artists of other ethnic groups every day of every month of every year. We're not just celebrated and should not be just celebrated in February as African American artists, but all year, because it helps to not only educate the community, but those of us who may be artists, gives us an opportunity to not only showcase our work, but to share the diversity of our strength in every aspect. So, it has been my life. I have continued to make sure that I stay engaged. I haven't produced as much since I've been a member of Congress, but I have produced a little bit. Once I leave Congress, I'm going to get back in my studio and produce some more.
Thanks. That's just a wonderful answer. You have been such a pioneer. We have a question in the chat that I think I'd like to ask you if that's okay.
Sure.
Wendy Hesko from Arts Education New Jersey is asking, what can we do to spread the song beyond what we're doing via our advocacy efforts right now? What can we do that might make a difference in this climate? New messages, new approaches. Do you have any?
Well, I think part of what you're doing right now, I think it's a good thing, because the more we talk about it, the more we educate, and that's what's important, that we educate members of Congress. We hold the purse strings. We have to continue to talk about how the value and importance of the arts to our children. We can start, for example, I introduced in terms of public art, the STAR Act, which is about the arts and transportation and infrastructure and how important they are together to sort of reinstate the flexibility and allow local transit authorities. One of the things that really impressed me when I came to Charlotte was, as I would drive through the community and I would see the artistic, not only the artistic renderings, whether they're murals, but a number of the things at transit stations, bus stations, etc., outside, where we had embossed surfaces of that, which was really kind of two-dimensional sculpture, if you will. And so, because art has a place not only inside museums and galleries and in your homes, etc., but it also has a place in the community, because so many people, if you think about it, have never stepped into a museum or a gallery. But when we bring the art out to the community, I think it helps to not only transform our lives, but it also helps us to have a greater appreciation for the environment and so forth. So I think what we need to do, all of us who are talking today, obviously are advocates for the arts. We've got to continue to advocate, but beyond that, we've got to educate members of Congress who may not know. We take the arts for granted, I think. For example, if you go out to a day in the park, and there's music in the park, well, those are artists creating that. Whether you have artists who come into the schools and who interact and work with our children, we want to continue to give our children those lived experiences. And so, but we need for the public to continue to say to the folks who can support the arts financially, and that's important. We need to let them know that it helps our communities to be well-rounded, but it also helps us as we develop our families and build our communities. And so it's important. And I think if we don't talk about it and share that, not only those experiences, but how important they are, then we won't know. Because I can tell you, as an elected official myself, we don't always know what we don't know. And that's why we depend on many advocates like you to really help us to continue to make those voices about the arts and how important they are, to make that resonate in the halls of Congress.
Fantastic. And the STAR Act stands for Saving Arts Transit Resources Act, which came very close a few years ago to passing through an infrastructure bill, but it's a very important bill to help make livable communities. Dr. Adams, I know that you have a very busy schedule, so thank you so much for your time and for being such a wonderful champion of the arts. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you so much. You know, we have to tell our stories, and the arts help us do that. And the more we do it, the more informed and educated our communities will be, and the better off we will all be. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too as well.
All right, what wonderful words from Representative Adams. Definitely inspirational words to come from one of our great champions in Congress. So we are going to pivot now to our next panel of state and arts advocates. If we could bring them onto the screen with me, please. Okay. We have one more. Nelle, can you turn on your camera so they can bring you on? There you go. All right, and we're off. So we've been talking so much about federal policy and federal legislation. The federal government certainly helps frame education policy across the country. However, close to 90% of K through 12 public school funding is amassed by state and local funding. Where you find the money is often where the power and influence is. And it's important to understand the issues at the state and local levels and how to advocate effectively for arts education. We have 4 expert advocates and practitioners to help take us through these issues and more. What I love about this group is that they are all have been educators or practitioners as well as experts in advocacy and policy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite them all to introduce themselves and to give a physical description. We'll start with Danielle.
Hello, my name is Danielle Laurion. I am a white woman in my 40s with pink and purple hair, asymmetrically cut, wearing teal with a woodblock necklace in various bright colors. I am the director for the dance department at Omaha South High School, an adjunct professor at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. I direct the modern dance company, the Moving Company, which is the oldest modern dance company at a university. We are celebrating our 90th anniversary this year. And I also direct Reach For It, which is a movement group for older adults and people with Parkinson's.
Thanks, Danielle. James, you're next.
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. James Weaver. I'm the CEO and president of Music for All. I am a middle-aged male with too much gray hair, but some color still left. And I'm wearing a blue polo shirt from Music for All in my office in Indianapolis.
Thank you, James. Lynn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lynn Tuttle. It's my pleasure to serve as Executive Director for the American String Teachers Association. I'm a 50-something white woman with, I like to call it James salt and pepper hair, though it might be going more salt than pepper these days. I've got a white colored blouse on with a black sweater, and I'm coming to you from my hotel room in Salt Lake City, Utah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Lynn. Nelle, you're next.
Hi, my name is Nelle Stokes, and I am the founding executive director of Magic Box. I am a white woman in her 50s. I am wearing a light blue shirt with a red necklace and blue glasses. Magic Box is a media arts education nonprofit, and we are in our 20th year of bringing animation, documentary, photography, and web designers and practitioners into schools and cultural groups throughout mostly New York City. And I am so honored to be here.
Thank you. And thank you all so much again for joining us. We are just, we're very privileged to have your expertise here today. Danielle, I'm going to start with you. You know, as a practitioner right now, just if you'd be willing to give us some background on Omaha South Public Schools, its dance department, what's working in terms of dance, as well as arts education overall in the public school system.
Yeah, thank you. Omaha South School is a Title I school in South Omaha. About 90% of our population is Hispanic Latino students. And the dance department is a really wonderful way for our students to initially earn PE credit. So they initially take the class because they'd like an alternative to a gen ed PE class. And a lot of them find that they really enjoy it and they get to have different ways of expressing themselves that they were not initially expecting. And so I have the joy of most of my students stay in the program for the 4 years that they're here. By the time they get to the upper levels, they also are earning college credit for the courses. And the school provides pays for those credits. So it gives them an opportunity to walk away from high school with some elective credits in their pockets. And for those of our students that want more of a professional experience and to kind of understand that, we do have an audition group that comes in for extra rehearsals and performs in the community. Tonight, we're performing with the Omaha Symphony. And so it gives our students opportunities to meet other professional artists in the community and create some of their own choreography and find their voices as choreographers and storytellers within their community as well. So that's how the program is structured. And this is my 16th year here running the program. One of the things that we really are trying to do, because we have this sort of island happening here at the high school, because we don't have feeder programs from the elementary and middle school, and we're the only arts program that doesn't. So I do a lot of recruiting to try to just educate our students when they're 8th graders. Hey, if you're coming to this high school, this is an opportunity. Here's what you can gain from it. All of those things. But this summer, OPS, the Omaha Public School Systems, did bring us in to write middle school dance curriculum. And so they are starting some feeder programs at a couple of the middle schools, and we're hoping to get more so that, again, this is something that becomes part of their education and not just a highlight in the fact that we are a pathway for performing arts. So our high school has this, but hopefully something that the whole school system will adopt.
Great, thanks for that background, Danielle. I'm going to shift a little bit here to Lynn and James. Both you are very seasoned experts and music education advocates. Can you tell us, I'll let you maybe tag team this a bit, but can you tell us about some of the issues facing music education at the state and local level, and how you aim to help through the Music is Education Coalition?
Lynn, you want to take that or me to take that?
I'll start and then let you chime in. How's that?
Perfect.
Great. Thank you, Tushar. So this coalition, musiciseducation.org, started coming together, I would say, in the wintertime. And part of it was our concern, our wonderment and concern about where the storm that's coming our way in terms of public education. In particular, we know that even before the passage of the big, beautiful bill this summer, we knew that stimulus dollars were going to start to dry up. We knew that we had a teacher shortage. And we knew that state budgets were probably going to come under some stress or duress. And when those things happen, that can lead to cuts to arts education and to music education. And what we really wanted to do is a coalition of associations and organizations and businesses and state music ed associations was to try and get ahead of it. Right? What are the tools and resources that we can put on the ground to support advocates at this moment in time? And how do we help shape maybe a different narrative in support of arts education at the state and local level before we're faced with cuts? And so that was the intent behind coming together as a coalition and sort of getting the work started. James, what else would you like to add?
Yeah, I think you did a great job on that. I think one of the things that's important to realize why this came together, as Lynn was saying, is the fluid climate that exists at the moment, right? There's just so many things happening that you're not sure where to put your foot to really be stable. It requires collaborations to come together. So what's great about this is we have well over a dozen organizations that came together to start the coalition and several more that are going to start participating. And so the reason why we started it was to try to see where the footholds are and where we can get solid ground under our feet, to use so many analogies in this idea. But then also to really say, okay, so we are all on this together. This is really a thing that the coalition model is what solves the problem. And then our focus specifically being on the state levels really is a unique place for us to be as a coalition, because so many of us are national and we focus so many on national issues. But the state level, to the opening comments from Tushar, is where the magic happens. It's where the money is. It's where we have to put our focus.
Thanks, James. And Nelle, you know, with the current environment, how has that affected your work in media arts? Have things changed? Are they, with your partnerships with public schools?
It's interesting.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, was that
Oh.
James or Nelle? Sorry.
That was for Nelle.
Oh,
Okay.
No worries. I think that pre-pandemic, there was a lot of, wait, what? Regarding media arts. And then post-pandemic, the what has gone away. Like everybody got used to being on Zoom like we are now. Everybody got used to the fact that, we all have, a transporter device in our hands, and so many of our students do as well. I think that something that sometimes gets a little bit lost in the conversation is that there's a big difference between being a consumer of media, which all of us are, whether we want to be or not, pretty much, and our students as well, and both a curator and a creator. And I think that those are the ways that media education and media literacy are extremely important right now, especially in a time when, it's the age of disinformation and overwhelm in terms of media.
Thanks, Nelle. Danielle, you are, congratulations, the president-elect of Nebraskans for the Arts. How are you going to incorporate arts education advocacy, dance education advocacy into your work?
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for the congratulations. That has been something that has started in my position is the chair for the education committee, and moving forward last year, myself and Cody Tallarico from the Department of Education here in Nebraska, we toured the entire state and went to each of the ESUs, and we're at the professional conferences for each of the arts modalities, and talking with arts educators, trying to help them create clear visions of what they want for their programs, and then really asset mapping, like what is it about what you do that can be leveraged to really gain these stakeholders, in the community, in the schools, from your students, your parent body, all of these things, so that we're building that community that we keep talking about, and really being at the heart of that, and finding ways to not only grow the program, but in this climate survive. And so we started that work, and moving into my presidency, working to continue to reach out to our educators across the state in offering opportunities for different types of lessons that show diverse artists that they can bring in. We've had conversations about, a lot of times, even in the arts communities, we learn about a lot of the stuff from the past, but what's happening currently that can be really utilized in the classroom. And so that's really my next step, is to look at what is happening in our artists in Nebraska and in the US, and really highlight and create some opportunities and resources for our educators to bring that information into their classroom, know how to access it, all of those things, especially moving into the America 250. And I would really like Nebraska to have a dance organization. That's also on my bucket list of, it'd be nice to, not always be like, hey, can we come to the table too, and so really trying to establish a group of dance educators that can get that started.
Thank you, Danielle. That's fantastic. Lynn, I'm going to come back to you. Guess the question is you're a music education advocate at the local level. Where do I start? What are some maybe 3 to 5, just key things that you should do to begin your music education advocacy?
Wow, that's a question, Tushar. First of all, know that your voice matters and that you can engage. And that you don't have to be alone, right? I always like to say advocacy is an ensemble endeavor, but we're always better together. So who else out there is also interested in music and in music education in your community? You can find them in your band boosters, choir boosters, orchestra boosters. You can check in with the teachers at your school if you don't know how to engage with those groups. You can check to see if you've got a district arts coordinator and see what assistance they might need or what's on their wish list, as Danielle was saying, what's on that bucket list that they would like to see happen. And if you haven't yet, get to know your school board. Maybe go to a school board meeting. Maybe find someone who's going and that can take notes for you if you can't get there because of work or schedules or life. How are they talking about arts education and music education? What do they want to know? What are they curious about? And how are they approaching, I would say, scheduling and budgets for next year? Because often those are the two things that are going to make the big difference in terms of the types of supports that you can get to support and grow your programs over time. On the musiciseducation.org website, and I put the link in the chat for everyone, we have resources that have been developed over years from different coalition members sitting under a state advocacy resource tab and local. And then certainly new for me, we have a dedicated chatbot named Carl B sitting there, named after one of the first most amazing music education advocates in our community, and it honors him, and he is there to help you, or the bot is there to help you, named after Carl. So ask Carl questions and see what you can learn, and the bot can help you build a statement to make in front of your school board, or come up with what that wish list might need to be for your school district.
And I had a chance to communicate with Carl B, and I've been in this space for a while, and there were some things that I learned. So I encourage all of you who are arts advocates to utilize that. James, I had a couple of questions actually about that were sent to me before the webinar, asking questions about the state of music and arts education before COVID and after COVID. So maybe two things. If you could quickly describe your very important role as co-chair of the International Performing Arts Aerosol Study. And then, you were in it advocating during COVID, and then just maybe giving us your take on the lay of the land pre-COVID versus post-COVID for music and arts education.
Sure. So I was fortunate enough to be the co-chair of the Aerosol Study of Performing Arts during the pandemic. I say fortunate because I was very humbled to do the work. Let's hope we never do it again. And so what we were tasked to do was to scientifically find a way out of the pandemic for music to become viable within the schools. Because of my former role, it wasn't just music. We're also looking at speech, debate, theater, and anything else that would be a performing art that could be back in. What we did was, the very short part of it was, we had lots of researchers who got to work in labs that we had gotten to reopen, found out particle sizes, figured out how to stop them, do all these things. And the reason we did that was because in April of 2020, we were told that there'd be no music in schools for at least 2 years. And that's completely unacceptable. And so we went from having about 8.5 million students in music programs, 6.5 million students in music programs pre-pandemic, to 0 during the pandemic, and having 4.5 million coming back into the schools by September of 2020. And we had a lower transmission rate than the general population, as proven by the CDC in 2021. So we really did have a good impact on that. And I think what that did is it set up an ability for us to mobilize lots of coalitions to say arts programming within the schools are wildly important. Now, pre-pandemic, I would say that advocacy was also important. We just didn't have the conciseness of messaging that we have pre-pandemic. One of the areas I want to look at, and I see this question in the question and answer chat. One of the things we really looked at is what the economics of the arts look like. Now, what we had to do was just get kids back into music programs, visual arts programs, dance programs, theater programs, speech debate programs. That was our primary goal. However, following that, when you look at the economics of what it is, there's $1.17 trillion in the economy for the arts. That is not a position of weakness. That is a position of strength. It's one of the highest levels of economic impacts we have in the United States. We're a $23 trillion economy. Having over $1 trillion that just in the arts says something. Having the advocacy messaging going towards, look what we're doing for children when they are part of our programs. They're not just learning music, they're not learning speech, they're not learning dance, they're learning real things that take them through the rest of their lives through the vehicle of these programs. They're learning dedication, they're learning teamwork, they're learning how to critically think, they're learning how to problem solve, how to work schedules. They're learning all those things. That's what gets them ready for employment, education, enlistment, whichever direction they want to go. It gets them ready for all of those things. That is also a position of strength. There are few vehicles in education which we can say you will learn all of these skills every day you're in our programs than you do within the arts programs. And I'd be love for someone to debate me on that, because I am ready to go. But I think that these are positions of strength and advocacy that we need to lean upon. Also, I think really quick, and this is to kind of piggyback off Lynn's, there is nothing wrong with saying thank you before you have to ask for something. For example, my own local school board, I go there in the spring and I thank them for their support of the programs that we have in our local schools. They know that someday I'm going to come ask them for something, and it's probably going to be this year because of the way the budgets are turning up. But they also know I have spent a long time thanking them for the support they've had in the past, and I'm going to implore them to have those same support levels in the future. But there's something that says, be there before it's a problem. And I think that's really important to do when we talk about advocacy.
Wonderful, James. Thank you. Turning back to Nelle, we have a lot of community providers in the audience. You've partnered with schools in the New York City area, providing over 31,000 students, teachers, and parents with opportunities of creative expression. What makes an effective partnership with public schools?
That's a really good question. I would say my first rule of thumb is that one size does not fit all. Every school is an ecosystem, and it's a community, and it's unique to itself. And then it's part of its neighborhood, it's part of its district. The ripples go out and out. So I think the first thing to do, to piggyback on what James said, is say thank you for having us, and what can we bring to you? we're a guest in your school. How can we find common ground? And so a lot of that is goal setting and, discovering that the goals tend to be very similar. And luckily, media arts are something where I think one difference is that they are not ephemeral. You don't have that wonderful moment where, the performance happened and then it's done. So a strength is that you do have literally a record of what was made and of the product, if not the process. I think it's also really important to work with classroom teachers and administrators to make sure, as I said, that you're pulling out, like, it's one thing to say, well, I want them to make a video. Well, what are they actually doing when they make that video? They're going to have to write. They're going to have to record their voices. They're going to have to learn, elements of design. They're going to have to learn how to use a camera and editing system. There's a whole lot that goes into that. And then they're going to be able to look at it and self-critique their own work, which is really, really important. Once you have those kind of conversations, I think all the other conversations flow out of that.
Thanks. If I could just do a one quick follow-up, what is your answer to some who might say that they're concerned about media arts programs because it's expensive, because of equipment and technology?
I think that more and more that is less and less of a problem. Cameras get smaller. It's hard to find a phone that does not have a camera. We try to also use technology that's either web-based, that's free. And so there shouldn't be, a barrier in that way. I think that, we have a mobile media lab, which is, when a school needs something, we bring in tablets and tripods and microphones that students can share and work collaboratively. But I think the most important thing, if you figure out the why and the what that you are going for, those things are logistics. The equipment and other things are logistics. And you can really work not just around those, but through them. I saw one quick question in the chat that was asking about sort of non-traditional support and alliances. I can think of a first-year teacher who told me that there was absolutely no money in his school for his media arts program until he said, "Do you have anybody that's videotaping the sports programs?" Magically, he and his students started videotaping basketball, doing a short little edit and having like a weekly or bi-weekly, sports moment. And funding was much more easy to obtain after that. But this was somebody really thinking creatively about a program in his school that was already successful that he could really align himself and his students with.
That's great. Thank you for that, Nelle. Danielle, certainly to James' point, it makes sense right now for us to maybe, think about turning that, our position of power, how maybe that's not how arts advocates have always thought about that. So I'm going to certainly follow up with James on that. But, what do you say to, how do we get more access, for dance education in our public schools? It does lag a little bit behind music and visual arts, but nonetheless, incredibly important. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and there's multi tiers to this, but I think, having some sort of standard for the quality of dance education is essential. We have certain states that do have dance education as a requirement from elementary through high school. And not surprisingly, the universities in those states have dance education certification programs. However, that is not the case across our country. That is not the majority for our country. And so I think as an art form, really saying, we value these specific things in dance education. And, if we're certifying somebody as a dance educator, there's a certain level of quality that we are saying this person can offer into our school systems. And when we have school systems that are saying, hey, we want quality dance education, again, it's that cyclical, it starts to, make those things talk to each other and create those opportunities. But underlying all of that is really coming back to we have a history with being kind of, this sort of elitism sort of mindset early on in things where it was like if you had enough money, to take classes, if these kind of things that really created a separation from this mentality of what it meant to be a dancer. And I've always been this huge advocate that's like, as a human, we move, so we all dance. And so I think we need to step away from the mentality that it's something that is to be trained and learned only in these certain institutions, in these certain places, but to realize and really take a page out of so many cultures that use dance as a way to educate, to storytell, to pass on traditions, to do all of these lovely things it's so embedded into how one lives one's life that as educators, we need to start to look at our students are coming into our classrooms as moving bodies with experiences and these cultural backgrounds that they are not novice movers. They have a history and a background in all these beautiful things. And we need to start to open up our spaces to say that that has just as much legitimacy as some of our more codified, formalized concert styles of dance or other things like that. And I think when we start to do that, we look at dance education in schools as an approachable option. I am completely with James on the fact that I don't care if my students can do all these crazy technical steps. I care, are they a well-adjusted young adult who can navigate the world around them and make good relationships and advocate for themselves? Then I've done my job. Dance just happens to be the modality in which I'm teaching those skills. Um, and I mean, we do have a history where dance has been seen as potentially promiscuous, or there's been religious beliefs that have felt like it, kind of holds back. And I think if we can come back to the roots of just like, no, this is something that we all have access to, and look at how education can foster that, and then expose us to other forms of it as a way to just expand our movement knowledge. I think it would allow, our students to walk into the world in their bodies, in a confident way that they can not only navigate their own paths, but build those relationships with others, and at the core of it, build community.
Thank you so much for that, Danielle. And I wish that we had more time. I could talk to you all for hours on this, but I'm going to close with Lynn with a question that we got from our audience. How do we rise above the annual conflict of sorrows budget debates? And then maybe also added to that, have you engaged non-traditional allies in the promotion of arts education? Any productive alliances?
Thanks. Well, first of all, I have to give a shout out to Nelle because she did a great job giving an example of an non-traditional ally, right? So they are out there and they can be anywhere in the space, right? So don't be afraid to talk about the importance of music and arts education with all of the members of your community, because you never know where you're going to find an additional champion who may be able to assist or help you frame the conversation differently with a larger audience, right? Sometimes it's an act of translation, and sometimes we're not the best at that because we sit in the center. So no worries trying to find someone else. In terms of the act of sorrows around budget, I love that language. That was brilliant. So thank you for whoever put that in the question. And again, I'm going to turn to one of my colleagues here on the panel. Danielle, you did such a beautiful job talking about sort of systematically building your program over time, which then shifted the narrative in terms of now building into the middle school space, right? So it's about a long-term game. It's about thinking about what students need, always keeping students at the center, and how are you going to build programs over time so more students have access, more students have opportunity, more students can engage, as the Congresswoman said, in the arts in order to expand our minds and heal our souls, right? So even if you lose at that or don't have a successful budgetary conversation this year, there's always next year. And it's about building those friends, those allies, telling the stories, getting students engaged, getting your community members engaged, and having your eye on the long-term outcome, right? It's about building programs over time, being thoughtful in how you do that. And again, all of us here on the panel, we've got resources to share, and we're here to support you in that work, and share your best stories and models too, so that we can continue to learn from you and learn together. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you all for taking some time out of your busy schedules to talk to us. We know the importance of state and local advocacy. You all are pros at that, and we really value your time. We have their information, websites in their chat. We will certainly send those out as well. And if you have any questions, reach out to us and we will be more than happy to connect you with them. And with that, I am going to turn it over to my newest colleague and Americans for the Arts' new Chief Programs Officer, Ayanna Hudson. Hi, Ayanna.
Hi, Tushar. Thank you. And thank you for the really fabulous conversation that you just facilitated. And thank you to our panelists as well. And good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Ayanna Hudson, and I'm the Chief Programs Officer at Americans for the Arts. I'm a middle-aged African-American woman with straight, dark brown, shoulder-length hair with bangs. I'm wearing black glasses, dark red lipstick, and a multicolored dress. I'm joining the webinar from AFTA's offices in Washington, D.C., and I have artwork on the wall behind me. As I mentioned, we've had a really robust discussion this afternoon so far on federal arts education policy and state and local arts education actions. And again, thank you to our really amazing panel. And I'm delighted that we are closing out today's webinar with a really special conversation with violinist Adrian Anantawan, one of the Americans for the Arts 2025 Johnson Fellows. This year, Americans for the Arts proudly announced Adrian and multidisciplinary artist Rise Osby as the recipients of the Johnson Fellowship for Artists Transforming Communities. This fellowship, offered by Americans for the Arts, is supported by the Robert and Laurel Johnson Trust in recognition of their belief that artists, when given the opportunity, can create real paths for change. The 2025 Johnson Fellowship focuses on individual artists or culture bearers who identify as having a disability or disabilities. These creatives are deeply rooted in civic engagement, and their creative practices serve as a catalyst for social change. More information can be found by clicking the link in the chat. So again, I'm thrilled to celebrate the start of National Arts and Education Week by connecting with Adrian today to really honor his inspiring work and reflect on the vital role arts education plays in student development, academic success, and community well-being. Please welcome Adrian. Hi, Adrian.
Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes, thank
Okay,
you for joining us.
excellent. Yeah, it's a pleasure. My name is Adrian. I am an Asian male with close cropped black hair and wearing a light blue shirt and a very sort of blank background. I'm coming zooming in from Boston today. It's an honor to be able to be present with all of you, and thank you for American for the Arts for this opportunity to talk about a very important intersection of advocacy, education, and the practice of arts education.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, again, we are so thrilled that you have joined us this afternoon. I want to congratulate you again on being awarded the 2025 Johnson Fellowship. So, Adrian, let's start with you telling us just a little bit about your background as a violinist and specifically What drew you into the field of education?
So I was born without my right hand, and it was because of arts educators that I ended up playing the violin. I was in fifth grade, I remember, and our teacher wanted us all to play the recorder, and that was just not something that was accessible to me. So I worked with my parents and a violin teacher to create an adaptation for my bow, and was lucky enough to take to the instrument well and play it all the way through college, and eventually engaged in a professional performing career as a violinist. I would say that probably a few years into that work, I was always interested in creating more accessible platforms for young people who are maybe in my position but didn't have the educator or the environment for them to explore their potential and possibility. So I ended up working at a music therapy uh, wing of a rehabilitation hospital in Canada, where I'm from, and started off as an intern and did a lot of work around virtual music instruments, where motions and gestures could be translated into musical sound for those who have even more extreme mobility challenges than my own. For instance, kids who were paralyzed from the neck down, for instance, and could only move their head within this virtual space. They were able to play musical notes and contribute to an ensemble and communicate through this universal language of music that truly humanized them. So doing that work led me into more interdisciplinary work with classical music performance and technology, thinking about ways that we could bring some of these technological platforms to communities. So I moved to Boston and ended up studying education more formally, and really trying to figure out ways that I could create programming within Boston in particular to sort of be a test bed for not only accessibility for music, ensemble playing especially, but also on a larger basis, inclusion. So folks with disabilities, young children with disabilities, being integrated with their typical peers. And that work is ongoing in several ways. I have a small music program in a neighborhood of Boston called the Music Inclusion Program, which works with young kids, kindergarten through grade 2. And then on the other side of it, I also am a teacher at Berkeley College, and we have a music inclusion ensemble for pre-professionals who are who have really succeeded to play at a very high level, despite the roadblocks that were in front of them to get to a place like Berkeley. So we have in that ensemble people with disabilities, people without disabilities, and we're there to try to shift the industry conception of what disability is. Not only is disability not a detriment, K through college, but is actually an asset in promoting innovation and creativity in our art form. So this is something that I'm continuing to do here in Boston, and I continue to perform as a musician. So a lot of different hats, I would say, but all under the umbrella of the value of inclusion and accessibility for my art form in particular.
Incredible. Thank you. Thank you so much. The theme for the 2025 Arts and Education Week is Stronger Together for Arts Education. Can you talk a little bit about what this phrase means to you personally?
Yeah, I think that I grew up playing in orchestras and sort of more classical ensembles, and it is very magical to see what happens when you have these individuals like one cellist, a triangle player, bassoon player, come together in a space of mutual cooperation in a way that honors the individual voice, but also um, sort of works in cohesion with this larger um, musical sound. Um, there is something so compelling to seeing and listening to that type of work in action. So I always think that we're stronger together. It's very much everyone has their own voice, but we also can cooperate and play a very specific part to create harmony with one another.
Incredible. Thank you. I want to go back to the work you were just talking about. You talked a little bit about the music inclusion program at Henderson Inclusion School in Dorchester, Massachusetts, and you talked about the music inclusion ensemble at Berkeley. Can you talk about and share with us some of the successes that you've achieved through both of those programs?
Sure. I mean, I think I'm very lucky to be a witness to transformation of any musician or student when they perform um, and also learn something about themselves. I remember working with a student at the Henderson School, for instance, who was slowly becoming aphasic due to neurological conditions, losing his speech essentially. And he ended up playing a musical instrument and continuing to play in an ensemble as he was losing his words. And that was a tremendous point of connection for him as he felt, in some respects, the sense of loss. And I always like to think that disability can be dehumanizing if presented within the incorrect context. But music is an incredible way of like really finding the human in all of us, regardless of whatever our deficits are, at least on paper. So seeing things like that were beautiful. And I think that happens all the way up to the college level as well. There's a lot of stigma in the professional world of disclosing a disability, just like in other industries where disability can be seen as a liability. People are worried that they won't be hired, or there are just going to be so many extra resources to support an individual with a disability to provide the correct, meaningful accommodations for them to succeed. And what I've really appreciated in the inclusion ensemble is that we have these young pre-professionals, as I was saying, working alongside their peers, disabled, non-disabled, in a way that it's really sometimes not even when the music's being played, which is the most fun to see, but when they're socializing, like before they get on stage, or when we're going on tour and they're on a bus or a plane, and like really getting to know each other in ways that build lifelong connections that I hope can travel with them as they work within the music field or the music education field. Things like that have been the most heartening. It's always like the small things that really entice me more so than even like the big concert at the very end.
Awesome, thank you. So we've been talking about students with disabilities and access to arts education. Can you just briefly talk about some of the gaps that exist for students, but especially those with disabilities, and what strategies can help create more inclusive and equitable learning environments?
I think that arts educators are the most creative people I know. They are trying to see every student as an individual and trying to figure out this puzzle of how to unlock some type of voice within every student. And I think music in particular has that power to be able to embrace that diversity compared to some other academics sort of ways of thinking, at least in my opinion. And I think one of the gaps is like seeing a really great best practice that happens for an arts educator. And then it just stays within the classroom because arts educators, it's so difficult to sort of get outside the classroom to network, to be able to share best practices. I find that the work that I do is highly adaptive, but I do think that there's so much that I'm missing in terms of other people around the world who are doing the exact same type of work. And it would be lovely to just find more cohesive ways of being able to share the work that we do, not only in terms of practice, but also tools. For me, my realm is musical instruments in particular, and there's so many different types of adaptations for those with physical disabilities. And everyone started trying to reinvent the wheel when they find a student who needs a specific type of accommodation. So my hope is that this gap can be addressed by large organizations like Americans for the Arts and other music education networks to be able to share just the incredible work that continues to happen with all educators across this country and the world.
Wonderful. Thank you, Adrian. I want to thank you for being in conversation with me today. I greatly appreciate it, and really for your unwavering commitment as both an artist and educator. Your insights remind us why arts education is not just enriching, but it's essential to student growth, inclusion, and academic success. So as we prepare to celebrate National Arts and Education Week, your story motivates us to keep advocating for equitable access for the arts for all learners. And on a personal note, congratulations on the recent expansion of your family. What a beautiful new chapter. And we're grateful for your time and your voice today. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jay. Again, thank you, Adrian. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ayana and Adrian. Thank you, everyone who has been on this webinar with us. As it is Arts Education Week, I have a little homework for you. So as some of our panelists have mentioned, that get to know your school board. So that's your homework. Try to get to know your school board members next week and start a good relationship with them, because they can make some great changes with that. Check back on our website for the recording of our webinar. And with that, have a wonderful week and have a fabulous National Arts Education Week. Goodbye, everyone. Stay well.